Soccer versus America, and why the world's favorite sport is not big in the United States. I got an interview today talking about it with my guy Edgar. Let's check it out.
Class act up in first class for the leg room. K-Ho glitch, time pass in the restroom. Take a bad bitch to a 1.5-star motel. Then I'm back to crash in my bedroom. Been broke down all inside, not a flesh wound. Talking down with you. Who decision what to talk about it? Stupid decision, walk without it. You swear you all about it. You think you live it, but it's like once upon a time I met the boogeyman off the booger sugar. The Cuban good as Judah. Used to be a pierced to my wrist was period. Them diamonds back when I was a no one. Back when I was anonymous. Brand new.
Hey, what's up, Sports World Talk? I got a special guest today. I got my man Edgar Blanco right here. What's up, Edgar? How you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Sean?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. So you want to tell everybody what do you do as far as in the soccer world right now?
Yeah. So right now, my current role right now is I'm the director of recreational soccer. So I oversee our recreational program from our U3 all the way up to U13. I just recently last season took on the role of being a 77 girls coordinator, getting involved with the academy a little bit more. And this upcoming fall, I'll be shifting into the academy director role. So I'll still have an eye on the rec program, but I won't be as hands-on as I am now, shifting a little bit more to the competitive side. And yeah, I mean, I've been coaching since I was 19, 20 years old at a very young age, getting involved with my middle school and also with the local club. And I've been here since and enjoying it ever since then. So
yeah. And around what age for you did your love for soccer really start?
as long as I could remember, I mean, because at a very young age, my parents, my brothers, really our entire family was heavily involved with soccer when it came down to matchups on the weekends, on the weeknights, when Mexico played and when Chivas played. So as far as I can remember, we were always behind the TV watching soccer or outside on the street, just kicking around and playing, just picking up off of our parents and older siblings. So
yeah. And as a young kid or whatnot, did you ever have a dream to necessarily pursue it? Of course, I know in school you did, but anything after school, anything like that by chance? I know, like I said, I watched you play a couple times, so I definitely think you're definitely a talented guy. What was your goals as far as playing yourself?
Yeah, I mean, from a very young age, probably anywhere within like fourth to, even up in high school, I've always had that dream of making it to a professional level. I didn't quite know the steps of getting there. I just knew that it was something that I wanted to achieve at a very, very young age. So I don't know the quite like a definite age or a definite answer, but I think it's always been a lifelong dream for me to have gone and played professional for sure.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure like being in just even now being into the soccer world to where you could, help younger athletes and everything, that's like a self-satisfaction for you too, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So a lot of the way that I see it is I like to share my knowledge, my experiences, not only with the players, but with the coaches that we have in our community as well.
Yeah.
And really try to guide them to help build the sport and offer the best opportunities for all of our players that also have that same drive and passion for it, for sure.
Oh yeah, and I recently had a conversation with somebody, and I was speaking of that drive and passion and everything, and that's what brought the question for me as far as why football, aka soccer, in the United States isn't as big as it is in other countries. Like it's the most popular sport in the whole entire world, but here in the United States, like it's like fifth or sixth as far as on the list as far as after football, baseball, basketball, I think even hockey maybe, but I don't know. But it's like, which I'm like, what is that disconnect? You know what I mean? So like you as a person, like I said, I felt like you'd be a great person to talk to because you have had dreams and aspirations of trying to become a soccer player. Like what was the things, a professional soccer player, what were the things for you that was not there as far as you didn't know the way, know the path or anything like that, or what was the thing that made you go to, okay, hey, I'm a professional player, but hey, I want to switch over and being a coach?
Yeah. So, and back to the first part of it, I think and I don't know the true answer to this. I think this is just more of a generational thing at this point, but I do think there's some things that the U.S. could do a lot better to help really grow the sport at a very young age. I think for one, it's just how accessible it is right now. I mean, soccer is not as easily accessible as basketball or football or
Yeah.
baseball, sports that already have a really good foundation in the U.S. Prior to the soccer coming in.
Hmm.
For example, like basketball hoops and basketball courts, you can find those at every single park, whether it's
Yeah.
just a hoop, no net. But how often do you actually see a full size soccer goal out on a soccer field, for anybody to come in and use? Most of the time
Yeah.
now, kids have to be able to buy their own soccer goals, like a little pub goal or something, or the parents have to buy that. But if there's no interest, there's no like nothing sparking that interest, there's really nothing to get them motivated to buy a soccer goal, because
Yeah.
they know nothing of it. But if they had, if they had, a local field with some goals that are not locked up, or some sort of soccer field that is not gated,
Yeah.
then that might spark some interest for a player to say, "Oh, this field is right next to me." Walk out there, start kicking a soccer ball into the goal. I think that's how you start sparking some interest.
Yeah.
Uh, but there's many, many things really stopping that as well. And again, this is just one minor thing out of a ton of major issues that the U.S. is lacking in terms of growing
Yeah.
sport for sure. Um, and then in terms of shifting my career, I think at some point in my when I was in high school, closer to the college level as well, I didn't really quite know what I wanted to do.
Hmm.
In terms of soccer, I think it was more of a mental battle for myself. I think for
Hmm.
me, it was I kept battling myself, and this is where we'll talk about the four important components when it comes down to soccer. But for me, I always lacked that mental toughness. I always kind of beat myself up thinking I wasn't good enough to play at a collegiate level or at a professional level. Although I had a bunch of people really kind of trying to amp me up and tell me that it was something that I could do. I
Hmm.
think at some point I had a disconnect right after high school and between college as well of not really wanting to be involved with soccer, but that disconnect was very short for me. I think it was probably like a 4 to 5 month period of time where I did nothing involved with soccer, and I just could
Yeah.
not handle it. From going every single day with soccer, going with your family, by playing it 5, 6, 7 times a week, to not doing anything for a few months, and really just kind of shifted my mind back into it and saying, "Hey, this is what I love to do. This is my passion." Um, and I don't like what I'm currently doing. So I really want to make sure that whatever it is being involved in the sport, and whether it's coaching it, playing it,
Hmm.
and maybe not at a professional level, but still getting involved in, because I
Yeah.
loved it. I didn't want to continue that disconnect from it. And so yeah, so that's how I got into coaching. I reached out to the middle school. I got involved in the middle school, and from the middle school, the local club team here, Arsenal, reached out to me, and
Hmm.
um, just kind of shifted my focus out there to them.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I would say up until like maybe a year or two ago, I still had
Hmm.
that desire to play, even not at a professional level, maybe semi-pro or
Yeah.
some other league out there. Um, but also, it's very hard to now at this point because I have 2 kids. I have to be able to maintain my family, and
Yeah.
the academy is what's providing for me, and allowing to pursue my passion, but also get paid for it as well and make it financially fit for my family.
Oh
So
yeah, makes sense definitely. Would
yeah.
you say that I guess like you said with the with fields not being accessible, well, would you say also just the connections not being as accessible either to just athletes? 'Cause I know with basketball, you have AAU, you have different people who connects you to certain people here and there. And would you say would that be similar as far as not necessarily having that connection to where you could pursuits of whether it's like I know Atlanta United just came within the past 6 years, but I know some teams have like a Atlanta United 13U, 15U, not having that as accessible during your time coming up. Would that could play a factor of not pursuing it as much as far, but not as much as far as not knowing if you want to continue or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think definitely now there's a lot more opportunity for growth. There's different routes that you can take to make it to a higher level. Where back then, you relied heavily on college. Rely heavily on college and being
Yeah,
recruited or scouted or getting yourself exposed to these college teams. Now there's a bunch of different routes. You have ODP, which is the Olympic Development Program. You have like 6 different leagues currently right now, at least in the state of Georgia, that kind of have different routes to get you to whatever your goal is, whether it's college, semi-professional or professional level. I wouldn't say I wouldn't say that. I mean, maybe yes, there was a lack of, or not as many routes, clear routes to get you to that next stage and that next level.
uh-huh.
Um, but it wasn't impossible. It wasn't
Yeah,
impossible. And now that Atlanta has a professional team here, there's a bunch of pro affiliated clubs in
yeah,
this area as well. So even if it's not directly connected to Atlanta United, there's other clubs that have like some sort of spot partnership with Atlanta United,
yeah,
and they get more scouts coming out to their games. They get more
yeah,
exposure. If they're good enough, then they get invited to the Atlanta United Academy teams. And then on top of that, the U.S. Soccer Federation is getting ready to build a facility here in Georgia. So that's also going to allow it to grow a little bit more and kind of open up some more opportunities and some more routes to make it to that level.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it.
Would you say if let's say if the USA, soccer here, if they adapted the similar, structure as over in Europe and Spain, as far as like having those professional players at 15, 16 years old, basically not necessarily saying you have to go to college, but just saying because over there overseas it's real to, in basketball too as well, to where people are professional basketball players at a young age. But is there in the system, like let's say like in Barcelona, you got like a 15-year-old, he's a young, a 16-year-old, whatnot. He's a young guy, he's in training or whatnot. Would you say adopting a similar structure like that here, as far as okay, hey, seeing potential in a player, getting him at a young age, and then put him into a system to where he's training and he's working on his craft and then his skills and everything like that at that particular age, bypassing, college, of course, but having that similar structure. Would you think that would be beneficial here in the United States by chance?
Yeah, and I'm not again. I don't know the true answer to all this. I'm just giving from my point of view and what I believe and what I see on a daily basis from our club.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the U.S. is getting there with getting a bunch more of the academy teams that are affiliated with pro club teams around the U.S. So now you're starting to see a lot more younger players playing in the professional level. For example, Atlanta United just had a 17-year-old playing left back
Mm-hmm.
Saturday night, and you just see a bunch of players debuting at such a young age
Yeah,
because they're able to pull talent from the academy teams. I think I think the answer is yes. I think if a player is talented enough at a younger level, then you should be able to give them the opportunity to compete.
yeah,
Um, put them in an environment where they can continue to grow, and if they, especially if they have that potential, I don't think they need to be held back just because of their age.
yeah,
Um, but I do think the U.S. is trying to move in that direction. I think
mm-hmm.
they're slowly trying to put talent out there at a younger level and getting that young talent exposed to bigger clubs, and then making that move to the European level. Because at the end of the day, that's going to allow right now from everybody's eyes. It's kind of like basketball. I was having a conversation with KJ actually. This was a long time ago when we were working at Lowe's,
Yeah,
and we were like, basketball and soccer are complete opposite. Players in Europe who are shining, young players, they want to move to the U.S. early because of how developed and how competitive the basketball league here in the U.S. is. And
Hmm.
soccer is the exact opposite. So everybody's
Yeah,
dreams and goals is to go play European soccer because of how
yeah,
advanced they are compared to the U.S. Um, so I think that's where the U.S. is trying to, in some ways, trying to do what Europe soccer is doing,
yeah.
to try to develop that younger talent. But I mean, we're miles and miles away from Europe right now. So I think
Oh yeah.
the
And
U.S.
then
will
just because
Europe right now. So I think
oh yeah,
the
and
U.S.
then
will,
just because that's been a great league for so long or whatnot. And of course, being I think the MLS started in the '90s. I want if I'm not mistaken. Which as far as picking up steam, with having David Beckham. And other players like that come to MLS and stuff. Everyone's always try to shine light on it as far as having those players, but I think it over the years it kind of got the reputation as what my brother Jonathan has have called it before. He's referred to it as the retirement league. You know what I mean? So I was like, man, what could it do to lose that reputation of the retirement league as far as I know they got Zlatan at a later time in his career. They got of course Messi right now in a later time in his career, so I'm like, man, what could be it? I see, which I may say his last name wrong, but Christian Politic, what's it for the United States? Yeah, with him, he's 26 right now. I was like, which I know anybody who loves as a kid dreamed of playing in Europe. It's like what would take him at 26 years old after he gets done with his first, contract with AC Milan to come over here. You know what I mean? Like, what would it take? Money? What would it take? Or sometimes I think it's just the competitiveness of being around what has been looked at for years and years as the best talent. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I'll tell you this right now, a talent like Christian, if he was to come to the U.S. at like his prime level, or even
Hmm.
like when he was in really really good here in the U.S. Which I think his youth career, his entire youth career, he's been in Europe. So I don't think he's actually
Yeah,
played in the U.S. before. But if he was to make a
yeah,
transition back to the U.S. in his prime, I think the media and U.S. Soccer Federation as a whole, because it happens in Mexican leagues as well,
uh-huh.
he would just get a ton of negativity, because
Yeah,
for U.S. soccer, for Mexican soccer, the end goal or what they're trying to do now is get more of our national players into Europe,
yeah,
because the more that they have in Europe, the more competitive it makes the national team.
yeah,
And so you have somebody like I see it a lot. I don't watch MLS soccer as much, but I watch Chivas play and I watch the Mexican league. And when they get the opportunity to go to Europe and then they
hmm,
deny it, there's
yeah,
a bunch of negativity behind that, because
yeah,
they know how advanced Europe is compared to the Mexican league or the MLS, and they're like, in the eyes of the federation or just the fans in general, they're like, you're hurting our national team because you're not going to Europe and you're staying here.
yeah,
At what point will the MLS or the Mexican National League get competitive enough to draw more attention here?
yeah.
I think that it's not impossible, but a league like the MLS to catch up to a league like the English Premier League or La Liga is
Yeah.
a very very difficult thing to do. Um,
And I
but
think, like speaking of media, which I did one of my shorts was about the media and its coverage of MLS. Of just soccer in general, I feel like it's on the bottom of the totem pole. If you look at like people are having the same debate for months and months as far as Kobe, LeBron versus Jordan. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, we've had that debate so many times. Can we
yeah,
talk about this now? You know what I mean? And I feel like if people saw, like, especially let's say younger players or whatnot, they saw the media take knowledge of the sport and everything and look at it as it's something important because every kid, oh, I want to play, I want to be on TV and stuff like that, as far as be seen and known as like a great player. If very rarely have I went to ESPN or another Fox or whatnot like that and I saw, okay, hey, they're talking soccer right now. I would have
Mhm.
to go to a soccer affiliated channel to go watch that. You know what I mean? Like it'd be
Yeah.
nice instead of having those same debates that they know. Which, like I said, as a basketball fan, I've seen those debates so many times. You know what I mean? But if you want to have a debate, at least do Messi versus Ronaldo as a debate as far as greatest of all, or Pele as far as greatest of all time, or something like that. At least to get some type of conversation going. When Messi first came to the MLS, there was a little bit of coverage of it, but of course, since then, I haven't seen it as much. But would you say, like, as a person, in the soccer world, that's one thing that's lacking is the media and the coverage of it as far as on the mainstream, which yes, there are channels that cover soccer, but as far as a mainstream audience and primetime television, whether it's ESPN top shows or Fox top shows or anything like that.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what type of. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind for me is I don't really watch those
The show.
those shows because they don't really talk about the sport that I'm interested, at least
Yeah.
enough, So I don't know enough of. I think to me, I imagine that they're probably doing that because they want to rack up more views. They want to have
Yeah.
longer views and get more people excited to watch their channel. And at the end of the day, right now, to this current date, you have more people who are into basketball, baseball, and football, all three.
Yeah.
In soccer, they don't know nothing about it. So whenever soccer comes on in those channels, they just click off. Because
Yeah.
I know that's what I would do if I were to open up the channel and then it comes up and they have they're talking about soccer and this and that. I'd be engaged. I'd be watching it, but no disrespect. But as soon as it would go over to football, I just know nothing about football, so I would just
Yeah.
click off the TV or walk outside. Um, so I don't necessarily know if adding that or doing more coverage of soccer in channels that people have no interest of I don't think that's going to spark as much interest as I would think personally. I don't know. It
Yeah.
could. I'm not sure, but I just feel like if they were to talk more about soccer, at the end of the day, those people who know nothing about soccer or don't
Yeah.
really
They
care
click
about
off.
the
Yeah.
game, they're not going to watch it because they're not interested in it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm not sure that would help entirely, but again, I could be wrong, and who knows if they did cover it a little bit more, then I think there needs to be a way to be able to get it exposed to some of those younger players a little bit more,
Yeah.
those youth athletes, which you don't get youth players nowadays, or just kids in general, sitting on the TV watching uh, like those game reports or whatever,
Yeah.
and I don't, I this is something that I'm not totally familiar with,
Hmm.
but I'm just speaking off of my personal terms and people that I know that if they were to cover a little bit more, sure, we would watch that little piece of it. But then
Hmm.
when basketball or football comes around, it really
Yeah.
wouldn't
Come back
spark my
on.
interest at this stage. So
Do you think the new well, it's not new, it's 2 years old, but the Apple TV deal was something that was good for the MLS, or do you think that's something that is kind of put it in a box as far as availability to watch it? You know what I mean? Does it make it easy to watch MLS games as far as people who do watch soccer games, anything like that, or does it make it a little harder because you have to buy a MLS pass, league pass, or whatnot?
I think to me it's more of a negative than a positive. I like that they're streaming every single game and it's all in one platform, so it's
Hmm.
successful in that terms, but it's not accessible in a way that like a kid cannot just sit and watch it unless they subscribe, and they have to at that
Yeah,
point for the parents to say, hey, can you subscribe to this, pay this on a monthly rate, and now I'll be able to watch soccer.
yeah,
I think the best part about watching soccer on the TV is just turning on the TV and not knowing what game is on, just sit and watch it. And
yeah,
that's what I enjoyed doing as a kid is I would go to the living room, either my dad would already be watching something in the morning or I would turn it on and just go down the channels, didn't know what game it was or who it was, or I didn't even know if anybody was playing at the time. And I would just sit and watch the game because I enjoyed it.
yeah.
Um, and to be honest with you, here in the US, I noticed it just from coaching it at the youth level, is the problem with a lot of our players is it's really easy to run around and kick a soccer ball, but they have no tactical understanding of how to play.
Yeah.
And again, we're not at that age. We're more so focused on the technical piece of it and coaching the
Yeah.
technical piece of it. But it goes a long way when you have a kid who grew up around it, or is a sibling of an older brother or sister that plays it, or parents played it, or whatever. You can
Hmm.
see that knowledge and that soccer IQ already embedded in them because they've been
Yeah.
around it. Whereas
Hmm.
to a lot of players who aren't exposed to it as much will struggle because yes, maybe they're fast, maybe they're athletic, maybe they're uh, have some sort of like good attributes that can help them be successful in the game. But
Yeah.
as they get older, those kids who maybe are not as athletic but very technical and have a really good understanding of the game are going to continue to rise when this player struggles tactically because they just don't watch the game enough. And if
Yeah.
the game is not it's not as accessible like we talked about earlier,
Hmm.
it's not easy to pick up on a soccer ball and go find a soccer field with full goals and nets on it. Well, in from a watching it standpoint, we need more kids to watch it. Well, kids can't watch
Oh
it
yeah.
unless they have a subscription to it. So it's to me it's more of a negative thing than a positive. Like me, for example, although like I said, I don't know much about the MLS. I do like Atlanta United. I do like watching when bigger players come or with big names come to the US. I like picking
Uh-huh.
up some of the games. But me right now, it's like from a personal level, I don't see the need or the desire to pay for Apple to watch MLS soccer
Yeah.
when I can pay something else that will provide the English Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga,
Uh-huh.
Champions League all together. So it's
Yeah.
and I don't know, there could be a package out there that includes MLS. I don't know if is it just Apple right now?
I think it's just Apple right now because even on the player they got Apple TV logo on their sleeve and stuff like that too. So it's a heavy sponsor or whatnot in there. So to my knowledge, I don't think there is anywhere else as far as MLS games. I think they have maybe some League Cup games you may see on some other channels, but as far as like MLS for
Yeah,
MLS League and stuff like that, it's a little bit it's a little pretty restricted to Apple TV, and
yeah.
it's a 10-year deal too as well.
And
I think
do they offer? Is it just MLS or do they offer other leagues and Apple as well?
I think to my, like I said, I think it's just MLS because, like I said, because when you have as far as on the Apple, because it has Apple TV, which you don't necessarily have to get an Apple TV subscription. You can
Mhm.
get MLS, but you have to go to Apple TV to watch it though.
Yeah,
But I think they may give you like a little discount if you get Apple TV and MLS.
yeah,
As far as this, instead of $14 a month. It's like
yeah.
$12 a month, something like that. But yeah, I agree with you. I just think like I like the financial side of it because it was a lot of money being put into the league or whatnot. Which having money into the league is always good.
Mhm.
But as far as like if I'm turning channels and everything, I can't just pop up on a game and oh shoot, I didn't know what's name was playing,
Yeah,
or something like that. You don't get those moments to be able to just go through and go on ESPN and watch the game. And I think that could be another reason why you don't see as much advertisement on those sports channels because it is locked into Apple TV. You know what I mean? Like I haven't seen, like I said, I thought it was a pretty good game coming up this past week. It'll have the number one team on the Eastern Conference, which is it was Philadelphia versus Inter Miami. I'm okay.
mhm.
Hey, number one team versus number two team. In any other sport, that will be a conversation. In basketball, that will be a conversation. Number one versus number two, conversation. In
Yeah,
football, the top teams in the NFC, that's a conversation. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that should have been a conversation of some sort. Of course, Inter Miami ended up winning 2-1, but and you had Messi in the game, so that was like a what they call a low hanging fruit, something easy to grab. You got the
yeah,
top two teams in the Eastern Conference. You have one of the best players of all time there. That should have been an easy grab and an easy conversation that wouldn't have been something difficult to talk about or coverage. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But I didn't see it. I could be wrong, but I didn't see it on any top channels. But I think that like what you said about, like I said, on the youth and everything. as far as the kids you see that comes to your camps and your training classes and that you see as far as joining youth soccer leagues, how much passion you see in the kids? Do they have the passion, or is it the parents pushing them to do it, or how does that unfold as far as from your eyes there?
Yeah. So right now, the teams that I'm coaching on, which I've coached at this point, I've coached teams at every single age group. To be honest with you, right now the teams that I have are 77. So that's our U8, U9, U10, and also a little bit of our U11 as well.
Yeah.
At this age, you don't really see a ton of passion. You do on, like I said, you do see a lot of passion on players that have already been exposed to it.
Yeah.
Whether it's like a from the parents, like we talked about earlier, parents, siblings, or whatever, or maybe they just hooked onto it somehow in some way. Then you do see passion. I'm not saying you don't see any passion at all, but
Hmm.
you don't really see a lot of passion when it comes down to the sport alone, um, or not as much passion at this age group, just
Yeah.
because they don't really know what's going on. To be honest with you, I think as early as it is now, the age groups that I'm coaching,
Hmm.
it's not so much the parents pushing. It's more so because they enjoy doing it, and that's what we really try to build first at this age. Is first we want
Yeah.
them to enjoy it, because if they enjoy it, then they get hooked into the sport. Then
Yeah. And then you want to get better.
they want to come back. Then they start seeking ways to watch it more and things like that. So the more we can invest them in training and playing, or in the sport in general, then that's how we get them to grow. Um,
Yeah.
so we don't get a lot at this age. We don't get a lot of the parents really forcing and pushing,
Yeah.
but do as they get older, maybe they get closer to a 99, which is in the next level of the next format level that we play. At
Yeah.
that age, you'll have some players that are kind of falling behind, or not able to keep up, or whatever, or you have some players that were I don't know, but at that age you tend to see some players come out, just because the
Hmm.
parents are starting to push and push and push, because the parents start to
Yeah.
get familiar with it. They want their kids to be really competitive. um, they want them to continue to get better. Maybe they see their players plateau, and they're like wanting to push and push and push, and at that point the kid just kind of gets burnt
Yeah.
out, you know. So I at the 77 level, you have more parents pushing. The parents that are pushing more are the parents
Hmm.
that kind of have an idea of how the competitiveness works, or have some sort of background in soccer, and they
Yeah.
want the kid to do even better,
Yeah.
um, but I don't know right now at this age group, and I'm just speaking on personal experience from what I see at the moment. I can't speak on everybody else, but
I say, yeah, that's why I was curious about. I know with basketball, it's very similar as far as when training youth. I've coached my son Brian when he was young in basketball and everything. And like you said, at that age, you really want to get them in a mode to where they actually love doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? You're not
mm,
teaching them how to do crossovers or anything like super fancy, nothing like that. Just the basic fundamentals of the game, and understanding it and actually enjoying it. And like you said, as they get older to the 8, 9, 10 years old and stuff like that, that's when you really key on, okay, hey, this is, if you want to get better at this right here, this is what you do, right? As far as skill wise, excuse me, and everything like that. So like I said, I definitely agree with that as far as getting the kids to enjoy it and love it more.
yeah, yeah, and that's where, like, our rec program. Right now we have a U6 rec program, and um, our rec program. I mean, it's all about fun. At U6
Yeah.
it's all about fun, because the more we can keep all of these players who may have some potential at an older age,
Uh-huh.
then that's our long term goal. Is can we keep them hooked into the sport enough to want to continue to play? And the more they get involved and play, the better they get. And then once they get up to
Yeah.
the academy level, is when we can start diving deeper into the more technical stuff, a little bit of tactical in there as well, just kind of build their knowledge of soccer.
Yeah.
And then, continue progressing as they get older.
Yeah.
Um, and you know what? We actually had a conversation here within our staff. We went to a coaches convention this past January. We went to Chicago, and they have a ton of different guest speakers from a professional, collegiate level, and club levels from all over the U.S. and even the world. Um, and one thing that they said is, why don't why don't you try to offer for us? It just and this is a very controversial thing. So
Hmm.
one of the things is why not offer a program that's free at a very young level to get
Hmm.
kids to get involved and be able to get kids involved in the sport before they get even introduced to basketball or football or baseball.
Yeah.
Because from a parent standpoint, if you have to pay $300 to participate in a U5 U4 rec league or something,
Hmm.
and I'm just throwing out a number, but and
Yeah.
then the option to play soccer for free at that age for a year, then it might spark some interest and say, hey, well, I want my kid at least being active, like let's
Yeah.
do soccer for a year, and then we can do basketball whenever he's at that age, whenever that free program runs out.
Yeah.
And essentially, like, if they really really love it and they build that love for the game at that age,
Hmm.
then the conversation for the parents might be, well, hey, he hasn't played football or basketball. He really loves soccer. Let's continue investing in soccer so he can continue to play.
Yeah.
That's something that we thought about. And actually, when we came back, we shifted one of our programs at a younger level from charging $100 for the program to now scratching that and offering it for free. But this
Oh,
program
okay.
is offered for kids who are already involved in a rec program, because we also
Yeah.
have to figure out ways of funding the coaches and the facility and all of these other things. So there's a lot of factors that go into it. It's not just as easy as saying, hey, let's offer something for free for everybody, but we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out the right solution to where we can get more kids involved without having that financial burden of paying a lot of money, especially for a kid at a young age.
Yeah, yeah, that's my next question as far as the on the financial side. Like, as far as, do you see that being an issue with kids and parents at a young age not being able to afford certain things, as far as in those youth years going into high school years, and after high school? Is financial, within your opinion, an issue of why people aren't playing as long? You know what I mean? 'Cause I know in high school, yeah, it's free. The sign, you can of course make the team, but of course getting equipment and everything, driving to games. If you play for Arsenal, it's traveling and stuff like that. Do you think that is that an issue for some people, as far as why their dream of it doesn't go as far as high school?
Yeah, I do think that is the factor that plays into this role, because I mean, it's very expensive, especially if you are in a family with multiple kids that are also into the sport as well.
Yeah.
Um, I will say that something that I'm happy about at the current club that we're in right now is that we offer financial assistance for anybody. We don't just turn players away because they're not able to pay, where a lot of clubs actually don't offer any sort of financial aid.
Hmm.
So here, luckily, we're fortunate enough to be able to have that solution of offering soccer without the ability to pay if
Hmm.
needed. Um, but I do think that plays a big role in the part of getting more kids involved, especially because it's very scary for a parent who doesn't know um, much about soccer or the stages of development, and you're asking
Yeah.
them to pay a certain amount of money and just
Yeah.
trust the process. When they don't know the process. They can see it on paper,
Exactly.
see that there's a development pathway, and there's stages, and you can give them all this information, but it's still very scary for a parent to commit to all that money and not really know what it's going to lead up to, or not
Yeah.
really know what that experience is going to be like, for
And
sure.
it's I seen recently when I went to a Atlanta United game, and I saw a mom there, and she had her son, and like his example, the example was that is not familiar with soccer with teams and the concept, but you can tell her. Little man was probably like 7, 8 years old, probably. You can tell he was into it, or getting into it. Like it was the early stages of getting into soccer and everything, and he went there and I can tell that you can tell she was definitely trying her best, as far as to be excited for him. But at one point, she was cheering for other teams. She was like, "Yeah, they did it," And I was like, "No," I'm thinking in my head, "No, that's obviously." I'm looking at your jersey. That's not the person you want to do it. And
Yeah,
but like just the fact that she brought him there and was
yeah,
able him to see that stuff. Like for me at a young age, like I didn't know it was even possible to even go to a professional game, whether it was any sport. You know what I mean? At a
yeah,
young age, because we just wasn't. It wasn't like a financial thing that we can just go do. You know what I mean? Of course, we live as like an hour or so, hour or two away from Atlanta and everything. And it's like it's a long way to go see a professional game. At that young age, I didn't know it was even possible. It wasn't until I was in high school to where I went to a professional sport game, and I was like, "Oh man, this is cool right here." So I think it's cool to see that a little man be able to experience that young,
yeah,
and so hopefully that can grow his love into sports in general, and or definitely even soccer in general, just to say, hey, I went to a professional game. It was Atlanta United versus Inter Miami. I got to see my favorite player. They did this, they did that. You know what I mean? Just to say that as a young kid, I think is very important, and it can push that drive of working on his own skills and everything. Like me, like I said, I was grew up a big Kobe Bryant fan. So when I'm seeing him in high school, I mean like 16, 17 years old, seeing him warm up before a game, I'm watching everything he's doing. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
I feel like, that's a good experience for a young kid like that, to have the opportunity. So
No,
me
100%.
personally, I'm glad of what having Atlanta United has brought to, this state in general, as far as the help growing the soccer community. I know it's going to take more time too, as well. But just as far as the MLS in general, what is it you think is a key factor that they're missing? That okay, hey, if they get this right, that can help tremendously. It may not get to like on the same level as La Liga or anything like other Premier Leagues, but if they get this right here, what do you, in your opinion, you think can help bridge that gap a little bit more, close it
Yeah,
in?
so I think the biggest one really that comes to my mind, and it's the most famous one that everybody really has a lot of opinion on, but there's no promotion relegation system when it comes down to the MLS. So
Hmm.
it's all based off of franchise and those big teams with big pockets and have a lot of funding, but there's no real opportunity for anybody playing at a second, third, or fourth tier,
Hmm.
um, to be able to kind of climb up that ladder and make it in those smaller clubs, or
Yeah.
club teams, have no chance of really getting a success rate when it comes down to exposing some of these players who maybe just didn't have the financial resources to play at a club level at a young age,
Hmm.
or didn't have the exposure at a college level. That there's a lot of talented players in that second, third, maybe even fourth tier teams, but there's no actual clear path to making it anywhere besides just winning the title of their league. You have the
Yeah.
U.S. Open Cup, which is cool, and it's fine, but it's just one tournament when you're talking about it an entire league.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
And with in a couple of years, we got the World Cup coming here to United States. How much of an impact do you think that will be on soccer in general here in the United States? I think that, like you said, creating that level for each team or whatnot, or each club here in the United States would definitely be a great thing. Do you think having that structure will be put in place a little before the World Cup, or you think the World Cup being here can help spark that desire for people? Okay, hey, let's build that way, because that ladder for each players, these young players who don't have the opportunity to play, as far as know where to have the opportunity to play. Do you think the World Cup can spark any desire with all that?
yeah, I think the World Cup is definitely gonna spark a lot of interest. I think there is gonna be, a lot more people here in the U.S. talking about soccer. There's going to be different games, big big names here in the U.S. So
Hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what really helped spark the interest here in the U.S. Last time they hosted it here in the U.S. So I think now that soccer has grown a lot in the U.S., I think this is going to be able to kind of get them over that hump in terms of getting people outside of just the soccer environment to get more into soccer, which is going to build the interest for the sport here in the U.S. Yeah, I think that's going to help a lot. There
Yeah.
actually is. Have you ever heard of? So there's MLS League, that's the major league here in the U.S. And then there's
Hmm.
another league that right now is kind of considered the second tier, which is USL.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
heard of
You'll
that?
say yeah.
So USL is creating a first division, which is, I think, essentially they're trying to compete with MLS.
Hmm.
And the USL is going to offer promotion and relegation within their three leagues that they have. So they're trying to grow that USL first division as big as the MLS, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Um, as big as the MLS. I don't know if it'll get there. I mean, who knows?
Hmm.
Hopefully they do. But their biggest sell right now is that they're doing promotion and relegation within their league, which is going to spark a lot of interest and
Yeah.
hopefully a lot of big sponsors and things like that. So if that goes well, I think there'll be a lot of opportunity for players that, like we said, might not have those financial resources at a younger
Hmm.
age to get exposed to it as early as they wanted to, but still have that talent, that natural talent. um, there's ways, and then there's a path to get there now with the
Yeah.
USL promotion relegation system.
Yeah, I've look. I was actually looking at some stuff about them just the other day, just saying like how many teams they have. Which I think they have like 26 teams at least. I think, if I'm not mistaken,
Okay.
throughout the United States and everything. And I'm just trying to see as somebody who played for them not too long. I think Tim Howard. I think his last team that he played for was in that league. I want to say I forgot the team, but I want to say it was in that league. I want back in I think 2020, if I'm not mistaken, his last time playing. But yeah, like I said, it's good to see leagues like that, growing and everything, and just putting more, spotlight on soccer in general and whatnot. And you know, the MLS is definitely gonna be tough to at the moment to pass MLS when they have players like Messi and everything. And getting to him, do you think him coming to MLS was a positive as far as growth and exposure for the league, or do you think it was something as a negative? I know Ronaldo looked at it as I think his comments. I don't know exactly, but he kind of downplayed it. As far as a good decision of Messi coming here. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to him, it's personal preference to him. But
Yeah,
as a US as a whole, I think that was great. I think, because how many times you see, I mean, especially here when I see it on a day-to-day basis, you have a lot more kids wearing Messi jerseys out
yeah,
here, just sparking that interest at a young age. So I think he was a great influence. Do I think his move to the US was great from a professional level? And I don't know. I mean, I don't know, that really is up to him and his goals.
yeah,
But I do think for the US as a whole, it's great. It's great that he's here, and
yeah,
the whole Inter Miami transfer window that they did at one time, where they brought Jordi Alba and all and
yeah.
Busquets, like
Busquets, yeah.
that. I mean, that had everybody here in the US talking about soccer. So
Oh yeah,
to me, that's something. Yes, maybe they're past their prime. They're not at the age where they can really give it all they had, like when they played with Barcelona.
hmm,
But again, we're talking about Messi, we're talking about Busquets, Alba, like
yeah,
these big names who we've seen on a big stage coming
yeah,
locally here. Yeah, it's definitely going to grow a lot of interest, and I think the World Cup is going to do the same when it gets here. In
yeah.
certain ways,
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited for it. I'm looking to looking at ticket prices right now.
yeah, I
So, 'cause I
know.
definitely want to go to a game for sure. Just to be able to say, I tell my wife and my son and everything, it's all about experiences. Just to say, hey, we went to a World Cup game,
Mhm.
watched it, and this is what happened. I've had a lot of people that have talked to me about the experience of games over in the Europeans, and they just said it's amazing. You know what I mean? Like the loudness of it and everything. And I feel like going to the MLS Inter Miami versus Atlanta United was like a small sample of that, because you do see a lot of excitement. I told on one of my videos, I spoke with somebody who had a flag and waved it the whole entire game. I
Yeah.
cannot do that right there.
Yeah.
But but just see that the passion that a lot of people have and everything. We know with football and basketball is different. It's like you're watching, you see a play, oh, it's a dunk, boom, or 3-pointer, oh, nice. It's like the moment, it's more so moments of the game, like the last minutes of each quarter or something like that, where you really get on your feet and everything.
Yeah.
What I found myself doing at the Atlanta United Inter Miami game is I was on my feet quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because if I wasn't, people standing up in front of me, I wouldn't be able to see it anyway. Because
Yeah.
there's the excitement of thinking, okay, oh, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the goal? Oh, the
Yeah.
excitement of that. I think people would really enjoy it if they really, took time and saw it. It really is a beautiful game. You know what I mean? Like just seeing it. I've played it as far as for, like pickup and everything like that, but not for the actual team or anything like that. And I've always had a good time, and you definitely got to be in shape for that for sure.
Yeah.
But I definitely am glad that Messi has came to the United States. I think it was a great move. I think Miami was the best team for him. I feel, especially with the culture down there. It's like a lot of different cultures down there in Miami and everything. He can adapt to that pretty well. And I feel like I said, I just feel like having that relationship with David Beckham and everything that helped him out. And I think it definitely has grown the game. They're actually getting a new stadium, which Miami's a fairly new team. They started, I think, either 2019 or 2020,
Mm.
as far as their first season, and they had that stadium then. But now they're getting another stadium. They're going to open up next year, 2026, with and I think it's mainly you see because of the financial growth of having players like Messi and everything like that on the team, to where the team has grown financially, and it has helped it. And the ticket prices. I saw one ticket price for one game for Atlanta United versus somebody. It was like $30 to $40,
Mhm.
and you go to one when Messi's there, it's like it goes from like that to like $80 to $100 a ticket. So it
Yeah.
is bringing in more money, and I feel like it's a good thing. And people say, "Oh, I don't want to pay $80 to $100 for a game." Well, I do it for a basketball game. It's because
Yeah.
I want to see the players that's there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I want to talk back on what you mentioned here in this conversation is when you go to an Atlanta United game, and I'm speaking on this because I went to the game on Saturday, and one big thing that I noticed, and I don't know if it's just our section specifically or what the case is, again, I'm just kind of speaking on my personal experiences, but like most of the time when I've gone to a Mexico game,
Hmm.
Mexico games are they're more rowdy. There's a lot more like passion behind it. There's compared to which again it's a national. You're comparing a national team to a club team. Of course, it's going to be a
Yeah.
lot easier. But in the Mexico games, like the past few games that I've been to, we stood up the entire time just because
Yeah.
everybody's like so into it. Everybody's like, if the person in front of me is not going to sit down, I'm going to stand up because I cannot see, if I sit
Yeah.
down. So they're standing up, they're intense throughout the entire game. Even if they're not chanting all game, like they're still very into the game.
Yeah.
And the Atlanta environment, of course, they have their supporter section. Like if I wanted to feel rowdy or whatever, I could get
Yeah.
it in the supporter section. Um, but outside of that supporter section, everybody's just kind of sit calm, watching the game. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy is happening at the moment. But then you have those moments where they get like in that final third, and there's about to be some sort of a chance to go or whatever. Then everybody stands up. So that was something that really kind of stood out to me, and also like
Hmm.
the chanting and stuff. It's and it really depends on the environment and how the game is going. Atlanta was
Yeah.
losing 1-1. The vibes were a little off. Everybody was a little upset and angry. I
Yeah.
had some conversations about what everything was going wrong, how this team is going down, and then they start scoring and they start doing really well, and everybody's like starting to get more excited, more. The stadium's getting louder, whatever. But
Yeah.
from those games that I've experienced, and it could just be those games, those Mexico games, we never sat down and we just kind of stood the whole time and the chanting was going on at all times, even if there wasn't a specific supporters group there. There was, but it wasn't like Atlanta. You know, they have that one section the entire time.
Yeah,
Here
oh
it's just,
yeah,
and then you got the wave going on all game. Like it's just a whole different experience. And if you ever get the chance to go to one of those games, I'd advise you to go to those games because it's
oh yeah. I definitely would like to for sure. Like especially that one was my first MLS game and whatnot, and I was like, man, I want more. You know, I want as far as just not just MLS, but just any type of game to where I'm okay. Hey, this team's coming over here because, like I said, just to see different experiences and atmospheres, I think it's a great thing. Like I said, and the person that told me that was like it was like 6 7 years ago. I was working at Lowe's. I was delivering something, and the guy had like a bunch of stuff. Like it was like football stuff. Well, football, no, aka soccer
yeah,
stuff all over his house. And I was like, man. He said, man. If you go to Spain, oh my gosh. He said the same way how the sound is whenever the Georgia Bulldogs score a touchdown here,
yeah,
imagine that the whole entire game.
yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, oh wow. But
No,
yeah, just to see that and everything, I definitely want to see it myself, man.
yeah, and then it's not to talk down on the MLS or any club here in the U.S. I think what the U.S. is doing, I think they're intentional behind a lot of things, and I think their end goal is to grow soccer here in the
Yeah.
U.S. And to be fair, Atlanta is actually Atlanta United at first when they started those stadiums would pack out and they were
Yes.
full and the environment was great, and now they're not performing as well. So people are not attending the games as much. But even then, like at the game, it was still a very very positive experience. Regardless of if we stood up or sat down the whole time, like it was still a really good experience. And I think
Yeah.
the U.S. at some point is going to be able to get that passion behind players and supporters behind it for sure.
Yeah, because I think roughly I want to say the MLS is only 30 years old, maybe or
Mm,
whatnot. Because it was in the 90s, as far as when, if I'm not mistaken, it was in the 90s when the league was created and everything. I think it's only 30 years old. If you go to the NBA when it was 30 years old, they weren't even doing live games. It was tape recorded. It
yeah,
took years before it actually can become a live game you can watch on TV. It was just
yeah,
recordings at first and whatnot until the 80s, and that it actually became live games and everything. So like I said, every league or whatnot, is gonna take those moments to where, hey, it's gonna take longer to build up and everything. But I think that when the thing that surprised me the most is just because how big it is all across the whole world. But it's like how are we lacking here?
yeah,
It's the most important, most viewed sport in the whole entire world. You
yeah.
know,
And I
but I
think
definitely hope they grow it out more.
Yeah, and I think like we said, MLS or soccer here in general is a baby compared to all the other sports. I think what
Yeah,
the way we look at it is, or statistically, like is the interest in soccer continuing to grow? If it's continuing
yeah,
to grow, great. As long as it doesn't plateau or go down, then that's
hmm,
when we can get worried. I think we're
yeah.
in those stages of growth, even especially at a younger age. Do you know who Speed is? Speed from the streaming. He's like a streamer on Twitch or something like that. You've never heard of him?
It says, oh, speed.
Speed,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah,
He he's just a clown when it comes
yeah,
down to a lot of stuff. But the amount of interest that he's sparking in players because of
yeah,
how much he talks about it or how like
yeah,
influential he is, I mean, I see it out here on a daily basis when I'm getting involved with kids. They're talking about it. They're talking about Ronaldo, arguing that Ronaldo is better and this and that.
yeah,
So it's sparking interest and to me it's like that. Although like there's other ways that could be done.
hmm,
Um,
yeah,
there's more interest coming into, especially to those who don't know as much as soccer or didn't know as much as soccer. So
yeah,
as long as the MLS continues to grow, soccer continues to grow. I think that's
yeah. I definitely agree. Like, I don't agree with the way he does it, but
yeah,
I'm glad it is
yeah.
bringing more attention. I'm like, it could be done in a better way without the
All
extra
the
stuff, as
extra
I
stuff.
call it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, but speaking of one thing you said, and like I said, and we can end it on this right here.
Hmm.
Who is your greatest of all time when it comes to a soccer player and soccer team?
Oh, soccer player and soccer team.
Yeah,
Soccer player has to be Ronaldinho. Just how creative he was, how comfortable he was.
yeah,
I mean, every single time this player played, and I sat there and watched, like I knew it was going to be an exciting game just because he was
yeah,
playing. You know, um, just like I said, his creativity, his comfort, his composure, his technicality, like it was nothing. Every game was something new for him, and
yeah.
for the viewers, which is what I really enjoyed. Because I would watch Ronaldinho, and after watching a game or some highlights or something, I'd go outside to the street and start trying to do all this freestyling stuff that Ronaldinho could do.
Hmm.
So that player really kind of drove me a little bit more. So I'd say my all-time player would be Ronaldinho for sure. Team, um, for me, I've had more passion and a bigger love for the Mexican national team
Yeah,
just because of my family, where we're from, and
yeah,
it was just the game. Like even now to this day, I'm counting down the days to when Mexico has a next game. Although they're not playing as great now as they used to be,
yeah,
it's still a game I sit there and watch every single second of it. Club team, I have to go with Chivas. Chivas is not very great either right now, but it is still gonna give the love and support, and really cheer them on. And they're actually not terrible. They have on and off moments, but that's my club team to go. But of
yeah,
course, every league has a team that I have a preference in watching. But to be honest with you, even teams that I'm not a big fan of, I'll sit and watch the games. I mean, on
yeah,
Saturdays, Premier League, Champions League, any game that comes on, if I have some time, I'll sit and watch it. So
yeah. Yeah, my brother-in-law Samuel, he's a big Chivas fan, and
yeah,
we talk about it, a good bit and everything. He's like, man, we're not like same thing you said, we're not bad, we can definitely do better.
yeah, that's just us being hopeful, and it's
Yeah,
they're terrible. No, they're not
yeah. And
terrible.
I was asking him, like he was telling me like culture wise, like Chivas is really like it's like traditional to stick to only Mexican players or whatnot. And I asked him, I said, but I asked you this question too: would you trade a championship for tradition? Like, if they went out of tradition and signed a Spain player or Argentina player instead of being strictly players from Mexico, would you be okay with that if they won a championship, or would you be like, hey, no, I like the tradition that they normally keep and everything?
When they're doing, and again, this is you. If you ask my brother Sergio, I'm sure he'll have a complete different opinion, and it could just be like a generational thing, or I don't know what the case is, but
Yeah,
yeah, especially when they go through a lot of hard times. Like right now, they have moments of success, but it's not consistent growth.
yeah,
And part of that is you have all these other teams pulling players from Europe, Spain, even South America, Argentina, Brazil, whatever. And for Chivas, them only being able to pull from, and it's nationality. So like I can be born in Spain, but my parents were born in Mexico. I can play for Chivas because as long
yeah,
as but so they're figuring out ways of kind of getting around that. Like I know recently
yeah,
they just got a player that was born in the U.S. and grew up in California. Doesn't even speak Spanish, but
yeah,
has Mexican in him, and so we've got him in the team. Um, but I guess to answer your question, I don't know. I don't want to say it because I know I'll probably get a lot of conversation on it for sure. But I
yeah,
do think that if Chivas was to break that tradition, I do think that they could go a long way. But I also like what they do. I like that they are very heavy on their academy and pull
yeah,
youth from within our club. Um, and to be fair, a lot of players that do really well in Chivas, they end up moving to a bigger team, and to
Mm-hmm.
Europe, for example, or maybe to a team that's doing a lot better in La Liga Mexicana. But it's just, I don't know. When they do good, I'm like, okay, this is good, this is fine. And then they do bad, and I'm like, man, we should have these players and this and that, whatever. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Oh man, yeah, I know Sammy. He was like, oh, I don't know. He, like I said, I think it's generational too. I think he's like your brother's age or whatnot too as well. And what's what he was like. Nah, I like the way that they're doing it as far as because it's it's
It's a
culture.
pride
It's
thing. Yeah, culture.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something he said. He was like, ah, and he mentioned what you said as well about people who had parents who were born in Mexico, but the child may be born somewhere else, but they still allow it to play. And I told him, I said, it seems like they're already toting up that line to the next
Yeah,
5 years. You might see it.
yeah. And to be fair, everybody outside of Chivas is saying that they need to break that tradition. Everybody
Yeah.
within, not everybody within Chivas, but it's mainly a pride thing. To say that you're playing with nothing but Mexican players, it's
Oh
and
yeah.
doing well against teams who are bringing in from outside of Mexico.
Mm.
Even if we're not winning championships, but we're competing with these other teams that are able to pull from a worldwide level, um, is a very prideful thing to say, for sure.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
it's to be proud of, for sure.
Oh yes, sir. Well, I definitely appreciate you coming on and putting more insight into the discussion of soccer here in the United States, man. Like I said, like I said in the beginning, your point of view was something I saw as that was a very important point of view because you work with the youth. You have been a person that had a desire to just to play the game of soccer and everything like that. So I definitely appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me, man. It was a lot of fun. The hour went by super fast.
I know.
I, I could sit out here and talk about soccer all day if I had the time to, but no, I
Oh
appreciate you.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's how I like so just sports in general because I like learning things I don't know and I like expressing things I do know. You know what I mean? So it's always fun. I'm not a pro. I can't I can't be a person that says, "Oh, I know everything about this sport." I don't. You know what I mean? So the things I don't know, I like learning it. You know what I mean?
yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't know everything either. I can tell you my experiences and what I see on a daily basis, but at the end of the day, I don't have the solutions to everything. But I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to know as well, and get that
Mhm.
feedback from other coaches and people above me, for sure.
Oh yes, definitely, 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 man. Well, I appreciate you, man. It's good talking to you. Good seeing you. I definitely catch up with you soon. And hey, congratulations on everything that you're doing. I wish you, the best on everything that you have in your future, man. You're a real smart dude, and you definitely have a love for the game.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll see you
Oh,
soon.
yes, sir.
Talk soon.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right, see you, man.